Good afternoon and welcome to the Rotary Club of Madison. It's starting already. I'm Mark Green, Club President. Thanks for joining us. Remain standing for our opening patriotic song. Angela Bartell will lead us in singing This Land with Jeff Bartell on the keyboard.
Sing! This land is your land, this land is my land. From California to the New York Islands, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters, this land was made for you and me. As I was walking a ribbon of highway, I saw before me an endless skyway, I saw below me an endless valley. This land was made for you and me. Harmony. Your land, this land is my land. From California to the New York Islands, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters, this land was made for you and me. Good work.
So music has long been a tradition for our club for over a century, and today's meeting is sponsored by our music committee. Would the members of the music committee please stand up for us? Thank you. We have 22 members of this committee, which arranges our weekly musical entertainment, including today's extra musical entertainment that we'll have for the children as well as adults for in attendance today. Robert Reed chairs this group, and we appreciate their time, their creativity, the talent, and the good humor in selecting the leading music for our weekly meeting. So thank you very much. President-elect nominee Janine O'Rourke will now introduce today's guests.
Good afternoon. Welcome to all our guests today. When I read your name, please stand and remain standing so that we can recognize you as a group. Nick Bartell, guest of Jeff and Angela Bartell. Linda Braden, Sam Brenner, Ann Brenner, Ruth Brenner, all guests of John Braden. Riley and Sierra Clear, guests of Mark Clear. Owen Dungara, guest of Steve Dungara. Avi and Yona Drazen, guest of Susie Drazen. Martin and Greta Kaminsky, guests of Andrea Kaminsky. Pipa Moran, guest of Connor Moran. Eve Paris, guest of Denise Hansen. Jody Renk, guest of Valerie Renk. Nick Salas, guest of Renee Moe and Jason Salas. And Jeff Powell, guest of Ashley Quinto Powell. Welcome.
All right, I have a few quick announcements for today. We have a small group of members who will be heading to Peru on Friday for a 10-day trip. Lucky. Those traveling will visit the water project being funded in part by our Madison Rotary Foundation, and they will attend the Cusco Rotary Club meeting. Vic Villacrez will lead the group, which includes members Christine Beatty, Becky Steinhoff, and Jennifer Weitzman. We wish them safe travels and look forward to hearing about it when they return. In 2 weeks, we're going to hear a brief report from Stephen Galinsky, who spent the last academic year in Japan as a Rotary Exchange student. Immediately following that luncheon in 2 weeks, our Rotary Exchange Committee invites you to attend Stephen's additional presentation to share more about his experiences in Nagoya, Japan. If you have a child or grandchild thinking about youth exchange, please invite them to our August 26th meeting to be inspired. And finally, Valerie Renk, if you're here today, would you please stand? Valerie and her husband Jeff hosted our Rotary Scholar Mentor Picnic at their farm in Sun Prairie last Sunday. We appreciate Valerie and Jeff's willingness to continue to host this picnic for our scholars and Rotary mentors. Also, thanks to Bob Dindorf, Kevin Hoffman, Dave Johnson, Gary Peterson, and Susan Schmitz as well for our kitchen fellowship group for helping out with the grilling and the food for the event. Charles McClyman serves as this year's Rotary Foundation president, and he will share some news about a new gift for us. Charles. The floor is yours.
Thank you, President Mark. It is my honor to announce a new gift to the Madison Rotary Foundation Scholarship Fund. We all remember our beloved friend and fellow colleague, Lou Harnett, who passed away in April. Lou would have celebrated his 102nd birthday coming up on August 17th. So in recognition of his birthday and in Lou's memory, Rotarian Brian Baskin wanted to honor Lou's memory with the establishment of the Lou Harnett Scholarship Endowment Fund. Brian has made a gift of $50,000 to the Madison Rotary Foundation to name the fund in Lou's honor. Yes. Brian was a great friend to Lou throughout his life and accompanying him to many places. And so what a wonderful way to commemorate Lou's service to Rotary and their friendship. Anyone wishing to make a gift to this fund, let's get it up to $100,000 as quickly as possible so that we can begin giving out those scholarships. You can do that at the Lou Harnett Scholarship Fund. So Brian, we thank you for your generosity to the Madison Rotary Foundation, and it's great. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a few birthdays to celebrate with a bit of humor and wisdom, compliments Rotary's mission. We encourage our members to make a gift to our foundation's Community Grants Endowment Fund that represents their age rounded to up to 100 for our Synergy Scholarship Fund. Oh my, okay. August 10th, past president Christine Beatty, who shares this quote from Reba McEntire: "To succeed in life, you need three things: a wishbone, a backbone, and a funny bone." August 10th, Carl Hampton. August 11th, past president Paul Hoffman. August 13th, Brian Baskin. Thank you, Brian, who shares this message. In an effort to generate more bloopers for the blooper reel, I would like President Mark to say Rotary International Polio Plus Fund 5 times very fast. Rotary International Polio Plus Fund, Rotary International Polio Plus Fund, Rotary International Polio Plus Fund, Rotary. Happy birthday. August 13th, Shirley Baum. And August 14th, Connie Thompson. Thanks to the celebrants and their contributions to the Madison Rotary Community Grants Endowment Fund. Please join me in wishing them happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Rotarians. Happy birthday to you. Nice. So, musical entertainment. It's great to have so many children in the audience today. Thanks to the Bartell family, Jeff, Angela, Chad, all of them Rotarians, along with Nick Bartell, who will now be joining them to provide us with some music and fun for about 10 minutes before I introduce today's speaker. I'll turn off the microphone and over to them.
My brother Nick, my father Jeff Bartell, and my mom Angela Bartell. We are the Bartell family. So thanks for some press part of you. This instrument is from Trinidad and Tobago. And we like to stress that point because a lot of people think it's from Jamaica or somewhere else in the Caribbean. And we like to give credit where credit is due. So Trinidad and Tobago is where this is from. Another thing that is from Trinidad and Tobago is the limbo. Yeah, it's actually from Trinidad and Tobago, and as you might know, it involves bending your body backwards under a stick. So that's what we'd like our friends here who are joining us today to come help us do, and show everybody how to do the limbo. So I would like all the kids to come line up right here. And the kids at home, if you want limbo and feel like you can without destroying yourself, come join us. But we're going to play a song, Nick, and we're going to do a little limbo contest. And the way this is going to work is that kids will line up here. They're going to go under the limbo bar. You want me to show them how this works? No, I know, but as far as going, if you want to go around again, you're going to go around here. Watch. Okay, so the way this is going to work, and the dad's going to show us here, he's going to go under the limbo bar. That's about as low as he can go. If you say how low you can go, that's it. And then he's going to go around these tables here, and he's going to come back to the back of the line here, and then the bar's going to get lower and lower and lower. Yeah, you go around here to the back of the line. All right. Are you ready? Okay. The bar is very high right now. Wow, we got some pro windowers here. I think the bigger kids are going to become just for all hands. Keith. Finally met his match. All right, we're gonna do one more round, okay, guys? We got our three finalists right here. All right, how about it for our winners? They're all winners. All right, thanks everybody. That was awesome. You guys did great. All right, we're gonna just play one more song, and we're gonna ask for your help here because this tune has some audience participation, and we've actually performed this one for Rotary before. This is Margaritaville, which I know is not exactly a kid's song, but we're gonna pretend here. And there's a part in the song, because as you might know, this song is partially about someone looking for a little salt shaker, right? And there's a part of the song where I'm going to ask everybody to shout, "Where's the salt? Where's the salt? Where's the salt?" Okay, does everybody got that?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, here we go. Ready or not? Living on the sponge cake, watching the sun bake. All these tourists are covered with oil. Strumming my sixth string on my porch swing. Smelling shrimp there, beginning to boil. Wasting away again in Margaritaville. Here we go, ready? Looking for my lost shaker of salt.
Where's the salt? Where's the salt? Where's the salt?
Some people claim that there's a woman to blame, but I know it ain't nobody's fault. People claim that there's a woman to blame, but I know it ain't nobody's fault. All right, that's it, folks.
So, now for our program. We want to see members, meet our current board members. And so we'll ask one board member each month to come up and introduce the speaker. And this month, Janine O'Rourke will make the introduction. Janine, who was our guest introducer today, joined our Rotary Club back in 2018, and she was previously a member of the Fitchburg Verona Rotary Club. She's a former Rotary Exchange student to Japan and is still very much involved with the Rotary Youth Exchange Program, both at the club and at the district level. And as I mentioned earlier, she's our president-elect nominee, which means that she will advance to the presidency for the 2028-2029 year. We start them early, so. Ginny will now come forward and introduce today's guest. Thanks, Ginny.
Thank you, President Mark. Okay, today's speaker is Mike Gomoll, who is the founder of Joey's Song. He lives in Sun Prairie with his wife, Nori, and their 3 dogs. Mike spent 25 years at IBM in management before retiring in 2018. In his college days in Madison, he worked in marketing at Headliners, a prominent music venue. Today, he co-hosts a bi-weekly music history segment on WMMM with Jonathan Sutton and co-hosts a weekly segment on The Zone called Scorecards and Setlists, which is syndicated throughout the state. Today, Mike is going to talk with us about Wisconsin's musical heritage. We look forward to your presentation, Mike, and we've made a contribution to the Rotary International Polio Plus Fund as a way to say thanks for speaking to us today. I also wanted to mention that we will have Q&A with our speaker at the end as time allows, but please wait for the microphone if you have a question. Join me in welcoming Mike Gomoll to our podium.
Thank you, Janine. Thank you. All right, so I usually roam around when I speak, but I've been instructed to stay at the podium, so we'll see how this goes. This is usually not a good combination of things, but I haven't given this pitch in a while, so I did bring cheat notes, so it's probably good that I do stay here for a second. What am I doing with this, Joanna? I'm pointing it at you? Okay. Okay. Is it turned on? Well, that's a whole nother question. Probably not. That would be part of it. There we go. There we go. All right. So as Janine mentioned, I started out my life, I worked at IBM for 4.5 million years. I was not able to have this long hair at IBM, but now that I'm retired, I get to be me. As George Carlin said, it's the same hair I've always had, I'm just wearing it in a new location now. So I wanted to take some time today. A lot of people don't know about Wisconsin's musical heritage, and I hope by the time I get done doing all this, you'll realize that we're more important than LA, London, Nashville, and New York when it comes to music. Our music landscape today would not be the same if it wasn't for these three people I'm going to talk about from Wisconsin. Now, at IBM, I always had to have like an analogy or something, so we're going to use these 9 squares that you see today to walk through this history. And I already forgot what button to push. Holy cow, who brought me up here? Let's see if I can do that. So, as I mentioned, a lot of people think Nashville or LA or New York. But if it wasn't for Wisconsin, we would all be listening to easy listening and bebop if it wasn't for these people. We'd have no Brad Paisley, we'd have no Eddie Van Halen, we'd have no Dark Side of the Moon, we'd have no Sgt. Pepper. We'd be listening to Muddy Drums and, God forbid, Milli Vanilli. So we're going to walk through this a little bit as I do that. As I said, Wisconsin is kind of known as the centerpiece of all that. We're going to talk today about 3 people. Oh, man. I should have just had you do this, Joanna. There it is. Yay, we changed the world. I'm already past that. So the first one we're going to talk about what happened. What are these 3 significant people from Wisconsin and how, in fact, did they change the world? And I hope, like I said, by the end of it, you'll realize that it would not be the same if it wasn't for these folks. Beloit, Waukesha, and Viroqua. Do we all have our maps out so we know where it is? Well, fortunately, I put maps on here so you'll know exactly what we're talking about as well. So the first one we're going to talk about is a topic that I like to call plug and play. And you see I covered up the picture a little bit so you can't quite figure out who it is. When guitar started in the 1940s, they were at best an accompaniment in orchestra, right? Orchestra and big band music was the music of the time. And if there was a guitar in a big band, it was a rhythm instrument. It wasn't a lead instrument. It really even wasn't a melodic instrument. It was really that. And the main reason was you're going up against trumpets and oboes and all the, I guess there weren't oboes in big bands. I need to rephrase this. All the things that were in big bands, you're going up against instruments that are really loud by definition. And so an unelectrified guitar didn't stand much of a chance in those days. So if you were a guitarist, you either played acoustic solo or you kind of stood in the back and didn't bother anybody. And if you know any guitarists, they're not good at standing in the back and not bothering anybody. I apologize to any guitarists that there might be in the room that I've offended with that. But even the music that did come out and the sounds that did come out were were unaltered and simple. It was the rhythm that you could get out of the guitar. And then came Mr. Les Paul, the Wizard of Waukesha. Now, before we talk about the innovations that Les had, I think it's really important to understand he was the biggest music star in the world during those days. He and Mary Ford, there was nobody bigger. 36 gold records, 11 #1 hits, 5 Grammy Awards, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame when it came along, Songwriters Hall of Fame. Even without the innovations that I'm going to talk about, Les was a giant in the music scene. And he and Mary were at the top of the charts for a long, long time. But a lot of people will say if it wasn't for Les being a musician, the innovations that we're going to talk about here wouldn't have happened either. There we go. So I want to clear up some fact from fiction, because everybody thinks they know what Les did. But the first thing is, Les did not invent the electric guitar, despite what people think. He did not invent it. What he did invent was the first fully repeatable electric guitar, right? Solid body. We'll talk a little bit about this. Other people invented it before, but it was too expensive. You couldn't mass produce them. So what Les really did was designed the first mass produced solid body electric guitar. And we'll talk about why that solid body is important in a second. Les didn't even design the Les Paul guitar. As we go a couple slides from here, you find out that he literally had nothing to do with the Les Paul guitar other than put his name on it. It was 10 years after he did his first invention that Gibson finally realized they were behind the boat and said, Les, will you put your name on this? And Les said, how much? And they said this number, and Les said, that sounds like a deal to me. So what was the problem? The problem, and I'm going to try to not, because I'm not an engineer, oh good Lord, I'm not an engineer, but I'm going to try to explain to you why it was so hard to electrify a guitar. So a hollow body guitar, the kind that you have in what we call an acoustic guitar, the way that the sound comes out is the strings vibrate and the body, the cavity, projects it out. That's where the sound comes from. When you're recording something or amplifying something with, like whether it's a trombone or the dreaded orchestral oboe, apparently, that I just made up, what you're then doing is just amplifying the sound that's coming out of the horn. With the guitar, it's the vibrations that you're amplifying, and that brings the dreaded feedback. If you've ever been to a show where it kind of backs away, it's because the vibrations in the body of the guitar don't stop once you hit the string. And so it's going back and back, and that's where you hear that thing where we all kind of cringe and think about, you know, fingernails on a blackboard when we do this. So that was the problem to solve. And Les, being a guitarist, he wanted everybody to hear what he was playing and wanted it to be loud. So what Les and some folks besides him did is solve the feedback problem. So I'm going to take you through a quick timeline that leads us to the 1952 Les Paul. And if anybody has a 1952 Les Paul in their closet, if you could contact me after this, I got a proposition for you. So the actual first electric guitar came out in 1931 by Rickenbacker. And if you're a Beatles fan, you know that John Lennon played a Rickenbacker. Some people say Rickenbacker. We'll argue about that later. But they called it the frying pan. And as you can see from on the very far left-hand side of this, it was the first with pickups. It's hard for me to envision Eddie Van Halen or Slash playing the frying pan. It was a little bit cumbersome, heavy, and really not great, but it was the first time that they had managed to do the pickups. And what a pickup does is it turns those vibrations into electrical pulses, which solves the feedback problem unless you're turning around and facing the speaker. So that's what the pickup did, and that was the first innovation that led to this. And then came along in 1936 the Gibson ES-150, which was a hollow body guitar with some pickups on it, but because of the hollow body, feedback was still an issue. It was resolved a little bit because it had the pickups in it, still didn't do very good. So in 1941, Les invented, and what a great name for this, the log. It was literally what it sounds like. If you look at that photo in the middle, the log is that middle part of it. It's basically a block of wood with two pickups on it, and then the neck and the strings to tune the strings. Well, it suffered from the same problem as the frying pan, so what Les did is he put the sides on it to make it look more presentable. Nobody's going to, not that musicians get in the business to get girls, but nobody's going to get girls playing a piece of solid wood like that. So he had to make it look, good, and they did that. Gibson took a look at it, said, no thanks, we're good. We've owned the guitar market, and they really did. Martin and Gibson owned the acoustic guitar market back in the day, and Gibson was the big dog. So then a gentleman named Paul Bigsby came out, and he was an engineer. He was not a musician, and he created what is truly the first electric solid body guitar. The problem was it was absolutely impossible to replicate. He did not design it in a way where you could mass produce it, and it was grotesquely expensive for the average musician to pick up and play. But really, if you want to sound smart and win a bar bet, say Paul Bigsby invented the solid body electric guitar, because he really did. So then a guy named Leo Fender out in his garage in California invented the first, they called them casters, the Telecaster, the Stratocaster. The Telecaster was the first one that he invented, which is still, for many musicians, Keith Richards, Bruce Springsteen, tons of people, the Telecaster is your go-to. It's a kind of a country guitar, and people swear by it. It's kind of like Hatfields and McCoys. Some people are Gibson people, some people are Fender people. The problem was extremely heavy, and it still is to this day. And Fender at that point wasn't Fender, it was just Leo Fender in his garage. So at that point, the folks in Gibson went, oh, maybe there's a market here. So they went to the drawing board, spent 1951 and 1952 designing what would become the Les Paul. But Les literally, other than that prototype in 1941, had nothing to do with it. They went to Les, said, we put your name on it, and now any musician, any guitarist kind of feels like they've made it to the next step when they have their own Gibson Les Paul. And it's those 52s to 56, you could get 10 more college scholarships if you have any of those in your closet. So that's the story, and that's really what Les Paul did and the story of the electric solid body guitar coming along. But without that, we'd still be getting feedback and all that other stuff. Maybe Leo Fender would have figured it out, but it doesn't fit my narrative. So I'm going to say it would have never happened if he didn't do that. Okay, what did I do wrong again? I think my fat fingers keep turning this off. There we go. Okay, but I will argue that more importantly are these other two things that Les Paul came up with. He's known for the electric guitar, but he did the effects pedal. Do people know what effects pedals are? You see a guitarist on stage and they seem to do that, and they're not stomping bugs. What they're doing is changing the sound. So Les, because he was both an artist and an engineer, figured the tones are already electric pulses. I can manipulate those. So there's fuzz tones and overdrive, echoes, chorus, and that type of stuff. So you can get multiple sounds out of the same guitar instead of having to switch. You can do it within a song, right? You don't have to switch guitars in it. So there's not many professional guitar players right now that would not be able, I was about to do a triple negative there, that would be able to do what they do without the effects pedals these days. So that's important. But the most important thing that Les Paul ever did was come up with multi-tracking. Up until Les figured that thing out, a recording of a song was what was played in the moment. You know, the band was in and everyone was in, and they'd step up to the microphone and you'd record it. So if somebody made a mistake, somebody hit a bum note, you go back and you do it all again. If you wanted to change something, couldn't do it. Les figured out multi-tracking. Now you have to remember, this was in the days of analog, so it wasn't digital, right? So it was on magnetic tape. And so kind of once it was on, well, Les figured out a way, I'm not going to get into it, he actually figured out how to do it on the platter, which was a disc, but then you could go back and add a guitar or change a vocal or fix a part. Now we can argue whether that's a good thing now that musicians can fiddle until the end of time. They should just record the music and get it out, if you had my opinion. But it has created multi-track, and I think that's pretty, we wouldn't have those artists I named. So, we wouldn't have Dark Side of the Moon, we wouldn't have Sgt. Pepper, we wouldn't have all of these amazing studio albums if it were not for multi-tracking. It would only be what you could perform live. All right, Joanna, there we go. There we go. Did you do that for me? Thank you. Maybe I'll just do this. So next one, please. So we're going to call this one Free Samples. So this is a story of a fellow from Beloit, Wisconsin that you've never, ever heard of. His name is Harry Chamberlain. You can do the next. There you go. In the past, if you wanted to have a flute on your thing, or again, an oboe on your big band recording, you had to have that instrument and a person to play it be in. That was the rule. You had to do that. What Harry Chamberlain came up with a way where you could have an entire instrument or orchestra on a keyboard. Any sound, any key. It was literally the epitome of the one-man band. There we go. So you're saying, but I've never heard of the Chamberlain, Mike. What the heck is the Chamberlain? Well, what Harry did was basically, I'm figuring out I don't need these notes, and I keep cheating, so I'm not going to do that anymore. What Harry figured out was, and again, this is pre-electronic, this is tapes, a system where he took 7-second snippets of each note for all the instruments he wanted to use. And here's your bit of trivia. The first Chamberlain was used with Lawrence Welk. A recording of Lawrence Welk's band was what he used. So now when you hit a G, if you wanted it to be a flute, it would play a flute sound. And it would be a tape that would just rotate for 7 seconds. pretty ingenious and pretty clever. You could sit down and do the whole thing. The reason why we don't know about the Chamberlain and we know it as a Mellotron is because the mechanism was very dodgy, right? It was breaking down all the time. Think about that. Think about, we all had cassette decks and 8-track. How many times did those go kablooey? Well, if you're playing a lot of that stuff and all these tape heads are going. So they were wonderful. Musicians loved them, but they weren't very reliable. So one of Harry's head salesman, a guy named Bill Franzen, borrowed two of the Chamberlains and went over to the UK because tape technology was much better over there. They went over to a company called Bradmatics, which was the tape side of things. They had much more reliable tape head. To the, I guess we could call it to the positive for the folks that ran Bradmatics. They didn't realize that Bill was not officially there with the Chamberlain company. They introduced the Mellotron, and then Harry caught wind. There was a little bit of a legal battle, but they made Harry whole in the end. But they came together and they were able to create the Mellotron. So it was literally the first sampling that was done. It was the first time that not everybody had to be in the room. It led to all the other samplings, and again, we can argue the positives and the negatives of that. So I think we can go to the next one, Joanna. Yeah, so now what I want to do is show you what that sounds like and what that means. So if you could play the first one, Joanna, you're all going to recognize this one. So while she's doing that, the thing on all of these innovations, as I was mentioning before, is when we got to digital as well, right? If you have an analog tape, every time you run it through and record over it, it degrades and it degrades. So there's only so much you can do with it, right? Well, once we got digital and all of these innovations like multi-tracking and all those things, now, again, we can argue whether that's good or bad, but artists can continually tinker and retinker. There's a story of the band Queen when they did Bohemian Rhapsody in that choir part that literally at the end you could see through the tape. I mean, if they had tried to do one more overdub, it would have all been ruined. And that's where switching from analog to digital. All right. All right. Well, we're gonna call an audible. Oh, look at that, an audible. I didn't even mean that joke. Sometimes they just come out. Oh, maybe. All right, this is the second one. The first one we'll take this one. So the first one was Strawberry Fields. We all know that part of Strawberry Fields. But this, oh, sorry. See? But all of that orchestration on this song is all Mellotron. Without it, David would have had to bring in an orchestra to do all that wah, 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 and all of the flutter that's with it wouldn't have happened. All right, and now the last one, if you were a child of the 70s in high school, I guarantee you this was your prom theme. It was ours, wasn't it, Jody? Knights in White Satin. You think this is an orchestra, but it's not. It's a guy sitting at a keyboard. So all this, all of this is Mellotron, and it's created by a single person at a keyboard. So a lot of people are disappointed when they find out that's not the London Philharmonic in Abbey Road doing it. Great, that's great, Joanna. Thank you. Now we'll never be able to get the slides back, will we? Oh, we did. Okay, great. We can go on to the next one, please. Oh, there we go. Now we got Strawberry Fields. And if any of you are, if any of you are interested, John's Mellotron is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. The Mellotron that he played is sitting there in the Beatles exhibit, and you can't touch it, but you can look at it and see the history. So that's the one that we both know. All right, last one of these innovators is going to be what I call smart sounds. And I bet you guys probably know what's coming here. Is me still fiddling with this? Can we go on? That's it. So you have to put all of these innovations, you have to put relative to the time they were happening. So put your mind back to 1980, if you want to, and think about all the stuff that was being played on MTV. Duran Duran, Flock of Seagulls, wow, 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 synthesizers, all of that other stuff. It was of its time. Let's just say that. It was of its time. So what made the innovation that came in from the Gisholt building in Smart Studios was a path back from that synth heavy to a more raw, tight production. It all emerged out of East Washington Avenue. Next one, Joanna, please. And that is my college pal, Butch Vig. Butch is considered the godfather of grunge, and he's just a kid from Viroqua, Wisconsin. And there's an amazing story behind this. So Butch and Steve Marker started Smart Studios while they were still in a band together called Firetown. They had been in Spooner. I'll let all you guys. And they started a studio, and they recorded anybody and everybody that would come through. There's a wonderful documentary, I highly recommend it, called The Smart Studio Story. That's on all the streaming services that goes through all of it. And it really gives you an understanding of what it was. They would record everybody. Well, there was a label out of Seattle called Sub Pop, which is now one of the big kind of indie labels from the West Coast. And they had this little band called Nirvana that had put out an album called Bleach, which was getting a lot of run, but not what they thought it should get. And they had heard about this place in Madison, and they sent the tape in to Butch. And since Butch and Steve didn't say no to anybody, they brought it in. And after that, it just blew up, this little place in Madison, and became literally called the Godfather of Grunge. And just so you know, what it was, and again, I'll try not to get too much into the detail, but when you mic up a drum kit, you tend to put the mics in the head or right above the cymbals or all that. And Butch still did that, but he also mic'd the room for more of an ambient sound. So if you listen to some of those things, Dave Grohl's drums are roomy and meaty. They're not quite as thin as they used to be. And you have to remember the 80s were full of Linn drums, which were the drum machines that you could play with 2 fingers. Horrible. And he tuned down the drums, he punched up the snares, and all those things that are literally the Butch Vig drum sound. And then he did a wall of sound, his version of the Phil Spector wall of sound, but it was more with the lanes that the music was in and the way he divided the music. I'll bring him here one of these days, and he can explain it to you better than I can. And he used double vocal tracking, which a lot of artists use, but he kept it really tight, instead of where you can't really tell that there's an echo unless you listen to it. But again, it made the sound fuller and meatier without it being big and bombastic. So if it wasn't for Butch, we would literally still be listening to Flock of Seagulls, and you can thank him next time you see him for not doing that. Can we go to the next one, please? And it didn't stop there. You probably recognize some of these bands: Nirvana, Green Day, Smashing Pumpkins, Foo Fighters, Soul Asylum, Sonic Youth, Butch's own band, Garbage, Jimmy Eat World. There's a bunch of other artists that he produced, and these are all people that Butch produced. But he won a Grammy Award, one of his 3 Grammy Awards. He produced a song with Paul McCartney. And when you produce for Sir Paul, you are definitely the toppermost of the poppermost. And get him to tell you some of the story. I'll tell you one quick story. So they were at the Grammy Awards, and Butch's wife, Beth, who's wonderful, had a couple extra cocktails that night. And Butch introduced her to Paul, and she ran up to Paul and kissed him. Now, fortunately, Paul's cool about that, but think about folks of our age getting to meet a Beatle. I'd probably run up and kiss him too, and I even wouldn't need a bunch of drinks in me. So anyway, I want to take a few more minutes and tell you just some quick what happened stories. So those are the 3 people that I argue, if they hadn't come along, we would not be where we are, and they're all Wisconsinites: Waukesha, Beloit, and Viroqua. Can we go on to the next one, please? So now I want to talk to you about 3 incidents, 2 of them in Madison and 1 of them in Milwaukee, that are just great stories. First one I call Thank You Very Much. Many people know this, some people don't know this, but the king himself, Elvis Presley, broke up a fight on East Washington Avenue. And it's true. You can look in the paper. On June 24th, 1977, he flew into Madison from a gig in Des Moines. He was on his limo coming up East Washington Avenue. He was still in his jumpsuit with his DEA jacket. We all know Elvis had a little cop thing going there, which, considering it was a DEA and how he left us, is pretty ironic. But they were pulling up at right where that Shep Motors is, where 51 and all of them come together. And there's a plaque there to this day. You can see it up on there, so if you want to have proof. And he saw that 2 guys were beating up somebody. He couldn't tell what was going on, but it wasn't good. So Elvis had the limo driver stop the car, and he got out, and you all know what's coming. He got into the Elvis karate pose and told the 2 perpetrators, "Do you want to take me on?" And they were all just, couldn't believe it was Elvis. They all shook hands. There were no cell phones, so nobody took a picture of it. But they all, and I'm sure all 3 of them probably walked off together and grabbed a beer. Like, sorry we were robbing you, but that was freaking Elvis. The amazing thing is Elvis only did 2 more concerts after Madison, and 52 days later he left us. So it was right near the end of his run, and probably his last big thing was a concert at the Coliseum back in the day. So I love that story. Next one, please. Next one we're going to call Dock of the Bay. Go on. As you all know, right, Otis Redding's plane went down in Lake Monona, December 10th, 1967. And we all know that he was coming from Cleveland, bad weather. He and 4 of the 5 Bar-Kays perished in that. there's a couple little facts that I think make this really interesting. He had recorded the vocals for Dock of the Bay, his big hit that we all know, just 7 days before that. He never heard his biggest hit. He had recorded the vocals, they produced it afterwards. He never ever heard the song that most people know him by. And of course, ironically, it's Dock of the Bay. There's a bunch of that stuff. So I just think that's amazing. The song that everybody would know, Otis never heard. He laid down the vocals for it as well. But even creepier, if you look at the bottom of this poster that's up there, opening before Bart Hayes and Otis, it says the Grim Reapers. Wait, it gets better. So the Grim Reapers were supposed to open for Otis that day, and the Grim Reapers went on to do nothing else, but their lead guitarist and songwriter is a fellow named Rick Nielsen, Cheap Trick, who's also in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So there was a Rock and Roll Hall of Famer that was supposed to open for a Rock and Roll Hall of Famer, and the Barcase are in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So if you didn't know it at the time, but you would have seen 3 Rock and Roll Hall of Fames. But the Grim Reaper and the Dock of the Bay stuff with how he went is a little bit creepy. But anyway, that's Otis. Last one. This is my favorite one. I'm going to ask the question, are you loose? Let me explain that one a little bit more. Anybody know about the Bruce Springsteen Bomb Scare show? Does that ring a bell with anybody? I see a few heads nodding. So October 2nd, 1975. Bruce wasn't Bruce yet. Born to Run had just come out. He was underground. If you were cool and into the music scene, you knew about Bruce. But it was, the Uptown Theater, which is not there anymore. They were about 45 minutes into the set, and the MC came and whispered into Bruce's ear, "We got a bomb. There's a bomb scare coming on. We don't know what we're going to do yet." So Bruce went over to the piano and went into Thunder Road, which was the next song he was doing that night, which I would love to hear a piano version of that. And then they had decided what to do backstage, and they made the announcement to everybody to leave. And if you listen to the audience bootleg of it, you can hear everybody around it being typical Wisconsin kids. "Oh, keep playing, we don't care, let them blow us up," kind of stuff, because it is Wisconsin and everybody was a little oiled. So what they told everybody was go out, come back in 2 hours. If there's not a threat, you can come back in with your ticket stub. So that's what everybody did. So everybody went out and got a little shined. Joanna, can you go next? There's a file with this, since we have 3 more minutes, right? We're not going to bust anybody. I have the writing down here, but we actually have the audio of when Bruce came back, and you got to hear it. It's worth the 3 minutes. I'm going to play it. What he says is, "I don't know what you did, but we got real weird." And now he's going to explain it.
The people, I want to tell you now that the people over at the Vista didn't know what was happening. That is a weird joint. There we was. I was sitting at the bar, Steve was in the bar, Clarence was at the bar. We was drinking our skulls out. And that's when it happened. That's when it happened. It got very serious for a minute. I sat back, I seen what was coming. I took a big gulp. My knees started shaking, my heart started beating faster than it ever had. I said, Steve, you know, I had a lump in my throat while I
got real weird. So that was Bruce, and we're grateful we have a soundboard recording of that. So, and now, if you ever see Bruce in Milwaukee, which I've done several times since then, he always says, "Are you loose?" It's a Milwaukee thing. It's the only place he ever says it, and the whole crowd shouts back. So with that, that is my 3 people that influenced Wisconsin and 3 really great stories. I'm happy to take any questions anybody has. But before, can we do the questions? I have one question for you guys. Go to the next one. Are you loose? All right. So I don't know if anybody has any questions. All right, we're out of time. See, I knew I'd babble. Oh, we got a couple.
Yeah, I think.
Here's the question.
Let's get one.
Yeah, I will be in about 4 minutes.
All right.
All right. Thank you, Mark.
Thanks.
Yep. If you mentioned Joey's song, it's a charity, music charity that I run. If anybody wants to talk about it, I'll hang around, and believe me, I'll fill your ears. So.
Nice. Thank you so much for speaking with us today. That was amazing. Thanks to everyone who attended. I hope you'll join us next week when we'll hear from Mary Beth Collins, who will speak about Wisconsin's civic health. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.